all of a sudden, I felt a huge wave of sadness, an emotion that I identified later on to be a feeling of abandonment. Or I never, in my life, myself, never had been abandoned by anyone in any ways. I was feeling that abandonment issue that belonged to my grandmother. Funny enough, that abandonment issue is also shared by several of my ancestors.
Welcome to the Heart Pot. My guest today, an expert in ancestral cleaning and soul empowerment. Welcome, Fabienne. How
Hello.
have you been lately?
Great, thank you. I'm excited to be with you today.
Thank you for coming on to the podcast. So, what have you been doing that's activating your passion lately?
Well, I my passion is to take care of my clients. So I had been redoing a new website that I'm trying to update so it can communicate well my message, which is not easy, because as you said, I specialize right now in ancestral lineage clearing, which is very abstract. I mean, people have no idea what it means, what it is, and so I'm trying to fine tune my message. And so, thank you for inviting me today because that can contribute to that, so people can be more aware of what I consider is 99% of the issue we have, to go to the root cause.
There are so many things I wanted to ask about that within your introduction and all that. But may I know what's your life before you become an expert in healing arts and ancestral healing?
There is no before. I was born clairvoyant and with healing ability. So I used to do energy work since I'm a child. So I was born that way. It's not like one day I discover something. I only had. It's funny because I did a test lately, a personality test or value test. It was a value test, and I only have two values: spirituality and love. And I am that way since I'm a child. I never cared about anything else. And so, very interesting. Yeah. So I don't feel like there is a before, after, or whatever. This is my life. This is who I am. This is my passion. And I spend my life studying and meeting people who enriched me, like you, because you are a very wise, beautiful soul. Any connection we have with people who are with the same thirst, for truth, for freedom, for love, they feed us, they feel us, they make us be brighter and more efficient in what we do. So this is all I do, connecting with people who can inspire me, nurture me in that mission. My life purpose is to help people to clear. I call myself the Ghostbuster. I like to help people to clear the ghost they have in their closet. And I know you're going to ask me maybe when I realized the importance of the connection of the ancestral lineage of our generational influence. And we can talk about that. But beside that, for example, I never really like vacation. People would say, well, they are waiting to be in vacation. To me, that doesn't mean anything because my life is what I choose to be. I am very fortunate to be free to do what I want and love. I paint. I do. I like to be in nature. So everything that I love, I include it into my work.
As you were saying, you were born clairvoyant and you were born knowing that you have this mission of wanting to help people, wanting to be of service to humanity. But like in reality, there's a lot of people that are not in this kind of situation. How was that like for you? Was your family supporting with you? How did you solve that from your journey along the way?
Well, the spirituality, I was raised in a Catholic school where I was very fortunate to meet very open-minded people. And I met even a lot of sisters, nuns, who were clairvoyant. They can be extremely spiritual. I met priests who believed in reincarnation. I met people very open-minded. So I don't see that as a limitation when I grew up. possibilities were there always for me. And my gifts are coming from my parents anyway. So they were aware of spirituality beside religion, between even how would I say scientific proof. They didn't need scientific proof to understand the connection, the power of the soul, believing in miracles, because healing is a miracle. Healing is really helping someone to be who they are supposed to be. All healing is self-healing. We are never broken. So
Yeah.
our job is simply to help people to remember who they are. And that's what I wrote. I did a little video for my painting on my website, fabiennemarneau.com. There is my soul painting. I need to redo the video. But in the text I have for the introduction of the gallery show of my paintings, of my soul paintings, that's what I say. Remember who you are, eternal and divine. And everything else is blah, 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 blah. I am a very simplistic spiritual person. Everything that is, I'm very pragmatic, and everything that I can use, I use, and everything that doesn't make sense, I dismiss it, you know? But really, we try sometimes to make things very complicated. Like I have people asking me, what should I learn? Techniques, coaching techniques, healing techniques, and all that. And say, techniques are wonderful because they keep you busy growing and meeting people. But the technique is nothing. There's only one thing we need is our connection with the divine and remember who we are. We have all the answers in ourselves. So when I say I was born clairvoyant, it's not just the vision, because I'm not 100% just vision. I am claircognitive. I just know things without knowing, without having any reason or apparent mean to know. But it's because I'm very connected to source. That's all. We all are. But we decide to keep the door open or we close the door. And very often what happens is that when we grow up, through our education, through the pressure of the media and social values and so forth, we shrink. We become really unfree. We lose our freedom, we lose our spontaneity, we lose our joy, growing up. So that is very unfortunate. And that's also one thing that it's important to me to help people to remember who they are and to reconnect with that child within that has no fear, that is free, that is all about love. It's like an animal. I love animals. I love dogs. A dog that is aggressive is a dog that has fear. He doesn't trust, he's afraid, he become aggressive, and he doesn't have a good life. And he's not a nice dog to be around. But a dog that is loved, that is raised with compassion and fun and, is going to be your best friend and companion. And children is the same thing. We need to respect our children for who they are, not to keep thinking we need to educate them. Yeah, of course, education is important. You need to have, rules so you can function in society, and you need to culture your mind and all that. But the child already has knowledge and need to be respected for who he is. Already complete, just a little seed that is going to grow.
Yeah. All the healing and all the other tools, techniques, they're just simply help us to come back to ourselves, to remember of our true essence. And as you were saying, if you have a lot of skill, a lot of techniques, it's just not ancestral healing. But what leads you the first experience of exploring this ancestral clearing and know that it's really important to emphasize that in a conversation with your clients?
Yeah, and in my practice. Well, the origin, it's really interesting. I was flying back to France. So I was flying from LAX to Paris. And at the time, all of a sudden, I was in the plane. All of a sudden, I felt a huge wave of sadness, and an emotion that I had identified later on to be an extreme abandonment feeling, a feeling of abandonment. Or I never in my life, myself, never had been abandoned by anyone in any ways. So I knew it didn't belong to me, but I couldn't control it. And I was sobbing, crying, and I'm not a crying baby. If you ever see me cry, it's very unusual. I mean, I would cry for other people if I witnessed something, or even on a movie that touched me. But to cry for myself, I am a pretty stoic person, and I was raised also that way, I think, not to show personal emotions. I mean, so that was really overwhelming for me, been crying like that in the plane without any reason, apparent reason. And then I tune in with myself I ask myself question, what is going on? Where is that coming from? And I realized that I was feeling that abandonment issue that belonged to my grandmother. And funny enough, that abandonment issue is also shared by several of my ancestors, not just that grandma, but other people, even my father, my mother, and my grandmother that I am aware of, and maybe others, of course. I worked on it later on. So I let it go through me. I didn't resist it, because it's really important when you have emotions not to resist them, not to suppress them, because what you suppress will amplify and become even more uncomfortable, So I knew enough to accept it, to let it go through me. And then once I was calm, I decided that I was going to do something about it, to see what I could do on a soul level to help that issue that my grandma had. And I believe, I'm not absolutely sure, because my memory sometimes is not the best, but I think my grandma was already on the other side. She already died. I was very close to her, and I have many stories that I can tell you about my connection with my grandma that are very interesting. Like even when she passed, when she died, I was sleeping in Los Angeles, in Lake. I was at the time living in Huntington Beach, which is south of Los Angeles, and during the night, it was for me the night, and for her it was during the day in France when she died. At the moment she died, I felt like a knife in my back, like a knife, extremely strong pain. I woke up, that woke me up, and I knew she was dead. I knew that was my physical feeling of her passing. Then in the morning, the phone rang, and my father told me, I said, I know, grandma is gone. And because, yeah, I knew. So those are communication, very strong communication from the soul, But to come back to the plane, when I was in the plane, I was able to calm myself down, but I said to myself, I'm going to investigate that and see what I can do with it, because one belief I have, everything that come to our mind, to our emotion, that come to us, anything, we need to be open to ask ourselves, what can I do with it? Why do I have that experience? And see the meaning, the purpose, because everything has a meaning, everything has a purpose. So when we close door, when we say, I don't want to feel that, or what is that? It doesn't belong to me, or whatever, then we close doors and we get stuck, Instead of that, it's good to go see what is going on in the closet, what I call the
Yeah.
closet, to deal with
Yes.
the ghost and ask them question.
Yeah.
Hey, what do you want to teach me here? Why do you send me that emotion?
Mm.
And then that's after, that I started working with, first I worked with generational lineage, and then through the people I met and different experiences, I understood that we can also go even deeper to every ancestral lineage that are on soul level, not only physical incarnation, but soul level. So that's more a general opening to the karma in general of our soul journey. And when I saw the result, because when I use pendulum to ask question, and when I have a client who asks me a question about themselves, they have an issue, I first now ask if that belongs to them or if it belongs to their ancestors. And like I said, 90% of the time, I mean, I would say most of the time, it doesn't belong to them. So then it's good to clear that first and then to help them to reprogram their mind. Because once we clear ancestral lineage, we still have work to do. Because what happens is that a situation that is negative or hurtful generate belief in ourselves, and belief belong to us. What we do with those beliefs belong to us. So once we clear the root cause, then we still have to reprogram the mind and learn tools. And that's why I have a program that is emotional self-care tools to reprogram our feelings, to reshape our mind, and to reset everything we want, to be more successful, happy, healthy, everything we desire.
And I'm really interested in the story that you're sharing. I'm sure the audience want to know more about a personal experience of yours. And as you were saying that you had that experience of sudden flood of emotion coming to your whole energy field, and you process it and you realize that there are something deeper in ancestral line there. Did you at the time just know that, oh, the ancestral path is the path that you wanted to focus on, or
Oh, it happened naturally, sweetheart. It's
mm,
and very often that's how I act in life. I don't always I don't consider myself as an intellectual, for example.
mm,
Of course, we all have intelligence and we use our intelligence constantly. Like we use our body, we walk, we eat, we breathe. But my guide is that I am a very open person, very open soul. And when things like that come to me, I say, okay, let's investigate. Let's see, and I ask questions like you do. You ask question, and because you ask question, you get answers. People who don't ask any question, they don't move on. They don't grow. They don't, because you stay stuck if you don't ask yourself questions. And it's very important to be asking questions about everything. Why am I feeling that way? Where is that coming from? What can I do about it? Like I said, if it looks negative, go beyond. It's negative now because it's hurtful or uncomfortable. But once you accept it, then you go beyond and it becomes a strength. It becomes a knowledge. It becomes something you can use. So, no, at the time, I didn't know I was necessarily going to pursue that as one of my technique or anything. But because I was open and I let it go through me, then life gave me let me meet the right people and the right clients. Because very often I grow through the work I'm doing with my clients.
mm,
They ask me a question or something goes wrong or whatever, and I'm learning from it. They say, when you are ready, the teacher show, but it's the same with the student and the clients. They feed you as much as you help them. We are all in the same ocean swimming toward the same direction. That's what I always tell people. And another thing that I always tell my clients, never believe that somebody is more advanced than you or that they are already there. Because if they
mm.
were there, they wouldn't be alive anymore. They would be on another dimension. They would be somewhere else. So, very often I heard people saying, oh, it's my last incarnation. I'm done with it. You know, and I'm looking at them and say, oh my gosh, that is so pretentious, And what do we know? No, no, I'll be working until I won't be having to work, and it's not any soon. It's not any soon. Every day I have a new challenge. And sometimes I share my own challenge with my clients. I'm not ashamed of that. because they need to know that everybody is human. We all go up and down. We all make mistakes. We all have flaws. We all have flaws. No one is perfect. And if somebody tell you they are perfect, run away. They are dangerous.
Mm. Mm.
They are dangerous. They want to be guru, and they
Mm.
want
Yes.
to look like they are sent. No, thank you very much. And even sent. I mean, I read a lot of stories. I'm fascinated by sent people because I think they are an inspiration. They are wonderful. And very often that's what they do. They share their flaws. They say they didn't like themselves, that they fight against their own demons. And so those are the one you want to follow, not the one that say they are perfect. Even Christ never said that he was perfect, and Buddha never said he was perfect. Okay. Um,
We all grow from our flaws. That's
yeah.
amazing. Yeah, and was there any personal experience that helps you to realize that, wow, your ancestral lineage actually affecting your life in a help you to suffer at first, but then help you to grow?
Yeah, I don't know if I have one. Well, that grandmother, for example, she had been a big teacher in my life, and she was not an intellectual person, but she was very, very intelligent, very bright, and and she had a heart like nobody else, the best heart. One day, I was not behaving right. I was mean. I was acting like a pretentious little brat. And she looked at me with a lot of kindness. She was not scrolling me. She was not mean to me, but she wanted me to be aware of my behavior. So she told me, if you keep being like that, there's only one person who is going to love you in your life. It's your mother, because she keep up with you, but you're not going to have a good life. And I was very young. I was very young. And that was an eye opening for me. I said, oh my gosh, she's right. You know, and it helped me change. It helped me be aware that I have learned that behavior from my mother, actually, who could be like that. But it wasn't me, and it didn't need to be me. So all my life, I had to remember that. And whenever I feel that I am not as kind or humble that I should be, I remember that. So it's big help, you know. And like I said, she didn't told me that in a mean way or anything. She just shared what she could see as something that needed to be corrected. Uh, so I don't know. It's not necessarily an answer about lineage, but I think that woman life had been. She was abandoned by her husband when my mother was, I believe, 2 or 3 years old. He divorced her for another woman. So she had a difficult life herself, but she never complained, never, and never criticized even her husband who left her or anything. She was a very positive, loving woman. So she is one of my best example, that I carry very close to my heart. Um, I have, that I'm aware of, a grandfather that is, uh, that was a surgeon. He was at the head of the faculty of surgery in Paris, so he was a very important man, a sommity, respected by everybody in the medical field. He died, he was 102, in a hospital, very happy to be in a hospital. That was his home at the end of his life. And I believe I have from him some gifts about understanding of human nature. He was a very wise man. I'm sure he was
Yeah.
an amazing doctor. He had an intuition about, he was a surgeon, but he saved people's life because of his intuition. He could see, diagnose things before they had all the tools, because now you can have, or, they can do X-ray, they can do so many
X-ray.
things.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about a man who was very old, I mean, uh, it's a long time ago. They didn't have all the tools, and so I think part of my intuition is coming from him. And my mother was a very spiritual, connected person. So directly from those, I'm sure I got a lot from them. But of course it go way beyond, you know. I personally also like to connect with what I believe were our previous incarnation. I totally believe in karma reincarnation, you know, and I
Yeah.
believe in it. I was not born, like I said, I'm a Christian, so I was not raised believing or understanding that, but I am an observer. And when I started doing past life regression, for example, on clients, I saw results. So I say, if we have result with that, that could mean that those stories are a metaphor. They could be just a metaphor, just a story, but they also could be a real experience. So either way, I'm like I said, I'm very practical, so I use them. And I say that for me, it's not a belief, it's something I use and that I'm comfortable with. But for myself, I feel I have memories of past incarnation. So I don't refuse them and I use them. For example, I have a fear, a really phobia almost. I mean, I don't know if it's a phobia, but a fear of water, a wall of water. So I believe I was in Atlantis when we got submerged by the water. And I wrote an article about it. Um, the Titanic, for example, really impressed upon me, the story of the Titanic, because I believe, you know, that I have that fear of dark water and water coming to you, you know. And my brother, one of my brother has the same dream because I had nightmare about that. And he told me one day that it's a recurring nightmare he has about that wall of water. So we could have been together in Atlantis, submerged by the water, you know. Um, I met, like I said, I met fascinating people like Sonny, Dr. Sutton uh, was, he was teaching past life regression, crystal therapy. He was a specialist with crystal and healing with pendulum and all that. He wrote many books. He was a very bright, brilliant man. I took his classes to learn how to use pendulum for healing and work with crystals. And I had a past life regression with him experience too. He's on the other side now, but I know that he's guiding me. He's helping me still. One day, I was at a fair where his wife and his daughters were selling crystals after he was gone, and his wife came to me. I had a stand where I was doing readings and some. I was selling some of my soul paintings. She came to me and she said, Sunny asked me to give you this crystal. And she gave me a heart crystal in a quartz, a pink quartz. And she said, he asked me to give it to you because she was very connected to him from, from heaven. He would talk to her. She wrote a book with another friend who was friend with him. They wrote a book that he dictated to them through heaven, from heaven. It was beautiful. So she came to me, she gave me that crystal, and I knew why he gave it to me because, I had been told very often that my heart needed healing. So I still have that heart, and it's actually in my bed. I put it under my pillow. I sleep with it. And sometimes I put it on my heart when I can.
So you have covered many stuff within your story.
If I may stop you to tell you about Dr. Sunny, he told me that I didn't need to work with crystals, that I had crystals incorporated in my DNA and that I could activate them naturally, and that he was with me in Lunaria before Atlantis. There is a time that is called Lunaria, the Lunarian, and he believed,
Lemurian.
that we were together during that time. So that's another connection from soul ancestor, you know. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you.
No, no problem. I just wanted to continue with that ancestral pattern because you have mentioned that your lineages, your grandfather has clairvoyant and your mother is always being a spiritual side. And also that you have mentioned the past life, the ability that we have from past life, or the fear that we have from past life. So that part we have covered a lot already. I just want to do a little recap for our audience so that they would know exactly what's going on here. But right now, I saw that there is a little piece I'm still wondering, I haven't heard from you, is there any ancestral fear or karma that is like affecting you in a negative way that you carry and you found out about it? Was there any personal experience of that? Because we carry stuff from past life, whether we like it or whether the one that makes us fearful.
Yeah, and but what I refrain to say is that it's negative because I don't believe anything is negative. I believe that even, and I agree with you, we are not always the good guy in those stories. Because we need to experience everything to be humble, to be kind, to be loving. We need to face our darkness. So, and to be honest with you, when I did, I don't do them as much now because I prefer working in a different way. But when I used to do a lot of past life regression, I must tell you that almost never people told me good stories. It was never good stories. I'm going to give you an example of one of my clients who actually gave me a beautiful testimonial video. In one of the life that I took her to doing past life regression, she was the person who took care of prisoners, in the prison, and she was mean to them. She would not give them food, so they would be starving. And so she was a really mean person in that life. And so we did forgiveness, we did, healing in order to make her okay, in the present moment and release something that she decided from that life is that she was carrying guilt, a huge guilt toward people that she did hurt in the past. It was unconscious, but that experience really helped her to be aware of it. And guess what she was doing every Sunday for years? She would go, because she lived near Laguna Beach. She would go to Laguna Beach, which is a city by the sea, where there is a lot of homeless people because it's a nice place. So they love to be there because it's nice. They have the sunshine. People are nice to them over there, so they go there. So she would go on Sunday and feed them, give them toilet paper, socks, the stuff they need, and food, right? She did that for many years. After I helped her realize that the real cause of her doing that was coming from a guilt, she was able to stop doing it. That doesn't mean she didn't care anymore, but she decided, well, I did that for, let's say, 10 years. That's enough. Now somebody else is going to do it. And then she find a job helping in a shelter for women. But that was her job. She's an administrative. She's taking care of part of that organization that helps women who had been who need a shelter, because they were abused or whatever. So that was interesting. And then another thing is that she had also a life where she was an orphan, and she was herself starved, couldn't eat, didn't have enough food, was afraid of not having enough food. So in this present life, she was overweight because probably her subconscious mind was telling her, you need to have reserved because maybe the food is going to be taken away from you. That was in her subconscious mind. So we did clearing on that, and then she was able to lose weight and to feel actually better with herself, happier, and all that. But you see, that was linked to a fear from a life before. So when we do past life regression, it's very important to do the clearing of the connection, because if you don't see sees the connection, then you carry over the issues, you know. So she was able to do that. So
What
I still
about
believe
mm,
that past life regression is interesting. That can be a good tool, but I still now work more directly with the general vision. We don't have to go specifically into the details of the story.
yeah, for me personally, I've gone into many past life regression before. I definitely know that it's a strong impact for everyone and whoever that's listening. If you're living in that past life, I strongly resonate with however you're feeling right now. Some kind of fears, sometimes it's just not coming from this life, it's from the other life. And when the time comes for us to see it, to solve it, it will come. But you don't have to really dig into that because we have so many past lives, to be honest. But there's another thing that I've found out on my healing journey that shocked me about is the ancestral karma thing, because I never knew that I was carrying so much from my ancestral lineage. And for me, I'm a person who always, I studied abroad since I was 14 years old. So I never really feel like I was in a place where I'm sticking into my home country, sticking to my ancestral lineage. So I thought it would have no way to impact
Yes.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So we
until I
did a
found out that
session.
there is.
Yeah. So we did a
Yes.
session. Did that help you realize with
Yes,
clarity?
I also wanted to share that over here as well. Before, I never really looked into the ancestral lineage, and I didn't think it was important. And for me, I feel like, oh, if I'm open-minded enough to the other stuff, I have saw a lot of stuff in my soul level, past life level, but the stuff that I haven't touched, get in touch with into is the ancestral and father mother wound. And after that, the last one is right now I'm solving the ancestral karma. This is when I met you. So it's fascinating to see that during the section, you were able to find out that whether the problem, the core problem is coming out of myself or out of my ancestral lineage, whether it's from my mother's side or my father's side, or whether there's both on each side with different issue. For me, it's a eye-opening experience for me. And I didn't know that with that, not only realization, you will help me to work on an energetic level. And I was able to clear that out without even knowing so much of what's going on. Explain to me, thankfully, thank you for explaining to me like what is the big topic that is being stuck in me. So for me, in a way that I'm always the person who want to know more about detail. I'm always learning. I'm always wanting to know more. So thank you for sharing that with me and help me to clarify. Oh, wow, there's this topic about my mother's side, and I clear that out with along with energetic level. After a day, or actually the night after the session, I feel my face got brighter and clearer for some reason, and I just couldn't understand, but in a way that I don't even feel like I need to understand. I just need to believe that, wow, there is something there. And I truly encourage everyone to just not, like a lot of spiritual people, we would blame everything on ourselves or thinking that it's our lesson to learn over here. But there are maybe sometimes we need to dig into other the perspective or other dimension of that similar same stuff. And you will find out that from the other way of looking at same stuff, wow, there are actually more stuff that maybe is not even your responsibility to carry on with you for your whole life. So that is a truly profound experience for me, transform experience for me, realizing that. And that is why I want to bring you on to share with the power of this ancestral karma. But I don't want to put it in a way that is negative, to be honest. Like maybe we carry that for a reason, we wanted to learn something from it, but maybe it's time for us to realize that okay, we don't have to carry on this way. But
And also
yeah.
we heal we contribute to the healing of our ancestors because we
Yeah.
can heal the past. And then we, of course, heal the future, the next generation. And on the soul level, we are all one. So we are helping humanity. So it's very important to do that, I believe.
I wanted to say some more on that because I feel like a lot of people, like Asian culture, we would think that, oh, it is our ancestor or our grandfathers, they're doing this, they're helping us to shape who I am right now. So they're sort of like throwing that responsibility to our ancestors. But it's not how I wanted to see with clearing ancestral karma. I wanted to see is this ecosystem of helping each other, helping our ancestor and our ancestors. They are actually helping us as well. But before getting into that, for those people who don't really understand about the concept of ancestral karma, can you explain to that in a way that's easier for beginners to understand?
Well, basically, when you go to see a doctor, they ask you question because your DNA, your physical DNA, is imprinted by your past, the people that created you, that give you birth, right? It's genetic. So they ask you, is there anybody in your family that had cancer, blood, etc., etc. They ask questions, right? And then that influence how they are going to treat you. They're going to see if they need to worry about specific disease or, well, we don't pass from generation to generation only our DNA. We pass also our emotions, our belief, and what I feel are the traces of who we are on a soul level. So if you have a grandfather who had fear because he died in a concentration camp or was tortured or things like that, that is going to be passed on his DNA as well. It will be there on some level. And you, as a grandchild from that person, you are not consciously aware of it, but it's there. And that's part of what I explained, that you can have an emotion that you don't understand or a behavior that you don't understand. Being fearful of certain situation, be angry without any reason, to be sad, and so on. So when I have a client that come to me to say, oh, well, I would like to be happier, for example. I have a relationship with my husband, but I'm disconnected. I can't receive his love. I'm not happy. He's a good man and he doesn't make me happy. What is going on? Why can't I be more content and happy? So I would test it. Does it belong to that person? And if it's no, then we dig into how far we need to clear the real cause of a trauma that has nothing to do with that person's present life. But it does has a connection through the DNA transmission that is not only physical DNA, but like I said, emotional and spiritual. Does it answer your question?
It seems like the fear or that issue could be either from our past life or from ancestral or from our this life.
And it's
And
often a
but
combination. It's very often a combination. And that's why when people ask me to work with me, I said that I like to offer them a program where I can follow them to go through all that, because we don't clear the ghost in the closet in one time. We have many ghosts and many root cause from those ghosts. And so that's why I love more the long term, not long term forever, but something a little bit more consistent to be able to clear. Plus there is 3 phases in healing, all healing. The healing itself, that include forgiveness and readjustment, energetic adjustment and all that. The second is empowerment. You need to be empowered to rebuild, reprogram your mind, your belief and all that. And the third one is creativity. Then what do you do with it? And that's why I always ask my clients to do something. Because if you put it in action, then the creativity is stimulated, and then you go from the cause of a healing need to the empowerment and the next step to be really free from your free will, from your decisions, and that is complete, you know. So I usually say that we need 3 sessions for one topic. And so you can imagine how many sessions we could do if we want to keep working. I work on myself constantly, never stop. You know, there is more layers, more layers, more layers. But the good news is that every time I'm happier, you mentioned brighter, I feel better, more at peace, more efficient, happier. I mean, there is limitless benefit from working on yourself on that level.
And what are the signs that maybe someone might be carrying the ancestral energy that isn't theirs?
Well, any issue. Because like I said, most of the time, if somebody share that they feel sad or stuck or they lack confidence, you have people who are brilliant speaker, for example, who say that they are still afraid of speaking. They know they are a good speaker, but they are afraid. They still feel overwhelmed when they do it, or I don't know. I mean, any issue really. Like I said,
see.
most of the time I see that it has nothing to do only with ourselves. There's so many layers, you know, root cause. So
So as I mentioned before, like I'm not sure about Western culture, but I know that in Asian culture there are people who tend to use ancestral karma as a spiritual bypassing excuse of saying I'm this way because of my ancestral lineage or whatever to avoid take their personal responsibility in life. Have you ever seen anybody like that? And how would you recommend us to that we can hold both truth and honoring our ancestor and still like taking our responsibility in part of that?
well, you know, it's interesting what you mentioned because that implies judgment. We don't need to have a judgment. There is nothing good or bad. It is what it is. It's comfortable or not. It's happy or not. It's hurtful or not. If it's hurtful, if it's uncomfortable, if it's negative, let's get rid of it. But there is no need to take it as an excuse for our own behavior because we are part of that lineage that we want it or not, we are. And that's our karma. And that's what we need to deal with. You cannot escape karma. You know, it's like the movie with the guy that is flying, you know, going down and say gravity is a bitch, right? I mean, gravity, you cannot escape gravity. Gravity is a fact, right? If you fall and you don't have a parachute, you'll die. There's no other way. Well, it's the same with your karma. If you don't take care of it, it will affect you. And you are responsible for your karma because we choose our life. We are never a victim. That's something that is really important to understand. On a soul level, we are never a victim. Nobody forced us to incarnate. When we are deciding to incarnate, to come to life on Earth, we have the choice because there is other place to be for a soul. We don't have to be on planet Earth. But we are on planet Earth because it's a difficult planet. It's going to be difficult experiences, so we'll grow faster. So that's the reason why we go on planet Earth. But some of us don't. That's what we call the star people. Many of us are star people. We had lives in other places. There's the galaxy that we live in right here is not the only one. Quantum physics is going that way more and more, knowing that there is no reason to think that this is the only place where life exists. So even scientists are not against, you know, that concept. Spirituality and science are really getting together more and more. More we know scientifically, more we are proving things, you know. Like the Dalai Lama was one of the first one who said that even the neurons, the brain cells can be rejuvenated, before they thought that neurons could not be rejuvenated. So aging was a fatality. You can only age. Neurons cannot be rejuvenated. And now there's actually a French scientist, I believe it's Dr. Drake, who proved that brain neurons can be rejuvenated. So you see, spirituality and science are proving the same way. Another thing that I think it's important to know, in psychiatry now, they recognize that speech therapy is actually dangerous, negative for PTSD. And I'm a big believer of that. If you keep talking about something that had been a trauma for yourself, it's only going to increase the impact of that trauma on yourself. So there is therapy, like I use, that don't involve to have to speak about it and still do the healing. So it has no impact on your emotions anymore. You disconnect the mind and the heart emotionally for the pain. You still are aware, you know what happened, you don't become amnesic, you remember, but it will have no impact on you. And any type of trauma, even childhood, people who had childhood memory with parents who were rude, or teachers, or who were bullied by people, I help them heal that because it's a deep trauma, but without having to talk about it. Woman who had been raped, you don't want a woman who had been raped to have to talk about it.
In what way you can help them with healing with their trauma without talking about it? Is there any specific example?
Well, it would take, this is the whole point of doing what I do. There is not, every case is specific. There is many techniques like timeline therapy. Like I told you, I use a lot of different therapy, NLP, energy work. So I combine all those techniques. And in one session, we can use 15 different techniques. But again, we use words behind techniques, but the idea is that energetically you tune into what is necessary to take your mind and your heart to a different place. It's helping you traveling those waves. It's like you are in the ocean, there's waves. And if you know how to take the wave, you'll be safe. If you take the wave the wrong way, you'll crash, right? So that's how I would explain the therapy I do. I never know how we're going to take the wave. That's the part of the intuition. That's why I say I learned many things, but I always knew where to guide people with those waves. There's those emotions, those hurts. I worked a lot with military people since my childhood, because my dad was a lieutenant colonel in the army, in the French army, and all his friends, colonel, lieutenant colonel, had trauma. They all had PTSD, and I would help them with different techniques.
Yeah, I often see that a lot of healers, they combine their a lot of skills, that not just only one system or one skill, but it really depends on the client's situation. Everyone's situations are different.
People, they were very open to it, because acupuncture can be extremely spiritual. You can charge the needles with your intention, with soul intention that can go, that are limitless, absolutely limitless. So it's all about energy. And what is energy? It's a communication of your intention, because your thoughts are energy. So working with love has no limit. And that's why I believe in miracles, because that's what it is. Miracles is being able to be open, to reconnect with what is true. Like I said, remember who you are, eternal and divine. You are complete, you are whole, you're not broken. So we need to reinstate that belief, and then you know it, you feel it, and you are. So it can be extremely simple, really. It's just that we need to shut down that mind that is controlled by our ego. The mind is the enemy. It's not our friend. That's why I love to say I'm not an intellectual, because yes, I love to learn and understand and grow, but I don't trust that. That's not what I trust. I only trust the intuition that comes from the heart. That is my connection with the divine. And I help my
Yeah, that
clients to reconnect with that, with the source. So they can go in their closet and look at their ghost and say, I know who you are, and I'm not afraid of you.
Yeah, that is why my podcast is called The Heart Path. It's connecting with heart, how to align to mind and heart coherence. The last question I want to ask you about the ancestral karma is what I have mentioned before, that I wanted to bring people into attention that ancestral karma is not only just a, you would say, bad thing. A lot of people, when they think of ancestral karma, they would think of something that's clear to get rid of. Is there something that's ancestral karma in a way that could affect us in a more healthy, positive way? During the session that you gave to me, that I was able to connect with my ancestor in the first time ever. And I never looked for my ancestor because I never thought it could be something that would be useful for me, for my wisdom or whatever, my growth. So if that happens, like, why is our ancestor showing up in our life?
That's what I am trying to tell you. You have to completely disconnect that belief that anything is negative. Nothing is negative. It's there. If it's there, that means it's useful, and we need to learn how to bring back peace and love to that situation. So there is always forgiveness. If it's something that was really hurtful, somebody does something wrong, okay? That's what we call negative. But that needs to be forgiven, because if we don't, then it keeps hurting us through generation to generation to generation. And it's the same thing in society. I went to Germany. We have a brother, my husband has a brother who lives in Berlin. I was really impressed with the city of Berlin, because they didn't try to hide the sign of the war. You see bullets inside the walls. In France, they did a lot of repair. They don't want, we have many towns who had been rebuilt because they were destroyed during the war, But in Berlin was destroyed. A lot of Berlin was destroyed. But the one place that remained, they kept it the way it was, with the bullet in the wall. They are not hiding what happened. I thought it was very courageous. And I think that it's going to be part of their healing, and to understand, yes, something terrible happened. They suffered from it too. Everybody suffered from bad choices, from, whoever decided what happened during that war. But eventually, we need to move on, forgive, and make a good use of it, to say, let's remember what happened and never repeat it, right? And become a better society, a better nation, and so forth. And I think that's what they had been doing. Germany is doing very well. They recovered, and they are respected, and so forth. So nothing is negative. It is what it is. It happened. We have to deal with it, but it's also there to make us be a more loving, stronger, etc. person. Now, I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's easy to do, because of pain, we resist a lot of stuff. It's easier to hate. I mean, the first reaction is to be hateful, to say, how dare they? I'm never going to love them. I'm never going to forgive them. I'm never, of course, that's a natural reaction. We are human. But when we are able on a soul level to do the work, then it makes us even brighter, more open, and able to go much further than if we stay into. Well, same problem with the death penalty. I mean, you still have people who believe in death penalty, right? And of course, in France, we don't believe in pain, but we did for many years. For many years, we had the death penalty too, and now it's not. But it was not easy because people want to believe that they know what is right. There is right and there is wrong, and punishment is part of the deal, and da-da-dee and da-da-da. But you can be punished but not killed, because when you kill somebody, you put yourself at the same level than that person. You become the murderer yourself. So to answer, because I know you want an answer. Of course, there's good stories. Sometimes there's good lives, like people who had been good. Then they influence you, and why not asking them to help you? You don't need to ask your ancestors who were acting poorly to help you if you're not comfortable with that, because you may not want to be connected with them. But you may ask the one that had courageous and kind life to help you. Yeah. Is that answering more your question? But we cannot discriminate. They are all existing. And even ourselves, in our soul evolution, we had been good and we had been bad. We are the good and the bad. We are both. We cannot avoid it. There is no light without darkness. There is no darkness without light. It's complementary in this planet Earth. Not in other dimension, but in this dimension, there's a duality, dual. The yin and the yang.
Yin and the yang, yes, yin and the yang. How would you describe that someone come to your session and work with you? For me, I already knew the process, but if you would share with the audience that if someone they are interested in working with you, how is the sessions going to be like? How are you going to help them to identify whether this thing is from their ancestral trauma or?
Well, first of all, if they come to me, they have to be open-minded to understand that I'm going to connect with the source of what I consider truth. You can call it God, you can call it source, infinite spirit, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't matter. So I connect with that and I ask question. I ask the client, what is the purpose of your visit? What do you want? What is your goal? What is going on in your life? In the present moment. I don't want stories from 10 years. I want the present moment. For example, even a woman, let's say, a woman who had been hurt when she was a child or a teenager, right? I don't want her to come to say, well, I was hurt 10 years ago or 15 years ago. Can you help me with that? No, I want to know in the present moment, how does it affect you? Do you feel you have difficulty having a relationship? Do you feel your business, for example, people who have financial plateau, who cannot reach abundance, wealth, anything in the present moment that is affecting them. Then they share that with me. Then I tune in with my connection with truth to find out if it belongs to only themselves through this life, or if it has roots that are, for example, ancestral. Then I'll propose them to work on it. And if they are in agreement to work on it, we'll do clearing. We'll clear that for them. Then, like I said, I'll propose them to do the next step, the empowerment and the creativity, so they can be complete and be able to manifest what they say they want. Because if somebody say, I want to be successful in my business, yeah, we can clear the blocks, but then they still need to reprogram their beliefs, their mind and all that, and then to take action. And that's where the coaching is important. So I do both. I do the healing and the coaching. Some people say you cannot do both. I said, of course you can. It's part of the completion of the process. And it's painless. I don't believe in pain. You feel good, right? After your session, you feel happier, you feel lighter.
Yes.
You said you felt better, right? You feel better since you had your session.
After my session was definitely, I felt a lot better and I'm grateful for that. So that's why I wanted to share with that experience with people. After the session with you, how can one individual integrating what they learn? How can they on their own to integrate that?
Well, you say on your own. I don't think we should ever be on our own. We all need to have a guide.
I mean,
I
in a way that
I have three coach and one healer master that I work with. I am not on my own, and I don't suggest anybody to stay on their own. You've got to decide. Yeah.
Yeah, what I mean is that you still need to go to the client and speak to the client on your own. You still gotta put on to work on your own. How can they move on with their life on their own? It's not like we're able to stick with each other 24/7, right? So aside from the session, they have the time to integrate. How would you advise them to integrate?
Well, that's the reason why I have online program and ongoing program. Because like I said, I do not believe somebody can keep growing on their own. I don't. And I don't myself. I have help, and I think that's an illusion. That's our ego that want us to believe that we can be on our own. And that's the reason why there is churches and organizations. They tell people to stay connected so they can keep working on their belief, on their faith, or their practice. But life is a teacher. Of course, you can function and you are going to keep. But what I'm trying to say, there's a choice here. If you find somebody that you feel has a good connection with what we can call the truth, right? Why not staying connected to that person? Like, I'm going to keep watching your Heartpot podcast because I feel that you connect with people who are interesting, who have something to say. So I'll be learning and connecting with new friends. Then I'll connect with those people and I'll ask them to do a podcast with me because I do podcasts and I'm going to do podcasts and so forth. You know what I mean? So I think we don't have to. Oh, I'm going to give you an example. I plan to create a mastermind called the Lone Wolf, but it's a lone wolf tribe because there is no lone wolf. Wolf to survive need a tribe. We can feel like we are a lone wolf, but we still need a tribe. So my recommendation to people is find your tribe. I'm not saying I am the only one who can help them even after one session. I'll invite them to stay connected and keep working with me, but they can, if not, they can find somebody else, but find somebody. Don't be a lone wolf. Find your tribe.
Thank you for sharing all that. And all of my guests, we have these three questions before we end. What is that one thing you wish you would have or could have said to your younger self?
I'm not thinking specifically about something. Maybe based on what my reaction just now was, I would say calm down, relax, don't worry about anything. It's just that I always had been very wise, very aware. I'm a fighter, obviously. I have a lot of fire, and I'll fight for the joy and the freedom of people around me. So I would say, relax, don't be so passionate sometimes. Understand that people are not always at your level of understanding. Be patient. That's what I would say. But don't worry, it will work out.
And on a scale 1 to 10, how much do you think you're operating from your heart right now?
9. That's the only thing that matters. It's to be kind. It may not. Sometimes we don't appear. Our actions don't necessarily appear. Are not always understood. But my intention is a 10, always. That's the only thing that matters. I believe that I'm a truth speaker. Truth is extremely important to me. I'm a believer in truth. That's why sometimes I can be passionate, but the truth is that I believe that love will always prevail. You see, darkness doesn't exist. You put one light in a room and you have light. The darkness is only the absence of the light. But as soon as the light is there, the darkness doesn't exist. There is only two energy, fear and love. So I wish to be fearless and only accept and nurture the love. So thank you for contributing to that.
And what is that one thing you can suggest anyone to create mind and heart coherence?
Breathe deeply. Go to your heart before you take action.
That's amazing.
And I want to thank
Um,
you for giving me the
yeah,
opportunity to explain something that to me is really important. What we just said, don't please feel positive about that. Because what we just say about the news, it's something that people need to hear. They need to know that everything is going to be all right, that the world is going toward the right direction, and that the media are really the enemy. Not to trust and believe everything that you hear, because there is so much information that we think that become that it's taking over. But you could choose to see the news about all the good news, and there is many good news.
that's correct. Even though you have mentioned that you have been offering different programs and classes and sessions, but can you summarize that for the audience, that what are you currently offering and that you would like to bring attention to people?
Yes, well, I have a program that is called Heart Soul Therapy. Um, uh, well, using Heart Soul Therapy, but the program is my Soul Alchemy healing. So it's a combination of one-on-one session with me and an online course that help to reprogram the mind. So it's complete. It's 3 months, it's 12 weeks program. You can find it on my site. But I have free gifts on my website so people can see if they like the energy. I offer a 5-minute instant peace meditation that I love, because I think it's important to cut yourself out of negativity. And in 5 minutes, you can be completely in a zone of pure light, where there is only light, only love and peace. So that's a gift I have on my website, fabiennemarneau.com. You can get the 5-minute instant peace. Of course, you can connect with me. I offer a totally free session where I can analyze with you what's going on, help you to see where you are. I'm going to give you an example. I have a lady who called me who booked that with me, and I help her see a possibility for her in her relationship with her husband. And she didn't feel like she needed to work with me, but she thanked me because just that session gave her clarity of where she was and the decision she wanted to make with her marriage. So it's a genuine call where I don't try to sell you anything. It's to connect with where you are in the present moment and give you suggestion of possibilities. And I also have another gift that is to be able to see my ancestral karma, a webinar on karma to help you to understand more of that too. So there's many things. But for the offer to work with me directly, I like to start with the 3 months, the 12 weeks program, because it's complete with one-on-one healing, online course to help you to reprogram your mind and be able to create the life that you desire.
Thank you for the resources. And where can the audience find you?
FabienneMarneau.com, that's my name. Let's
I'll
see.
also put the link down below
Okay.
for
Okay.
you. No problem.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Fabienne, for today's sharing. Thank you so much for bringing many stuff into the attention for people to reflect and to sink in.
Thank you so much.